But it wasn't because I wanted to be a leader. It was because I didn't want to get in. I was still motivated into leadership rather than inspired into leadership. And
Yeah.
as a result of that, I ended up flipping, for lack of a better word, flipping teams on my siblings, and so then they felt abandoned and betrayed by me because I was part of the abused crowd. Then I became part of the abuser crowd to make sure stuff got done, and that as soon as that was pointed out to me, it changed immediately because I was like, no, that's not what I'm trying to accomplish. In fact, I really didn't like it. I thought I was being abused. I thought I was being emotionally abused, physically abused. Like it was hard growing up that way. And I'm sure part of it was just out of necessity because there's 11 children and only two parents, and they were Pizza Hut drivers. So it wasn't like there was tons of money. And then my dad eventually got another job working for the phone company, and there was some other odd jobs there, but money was scarce to say the least. And there was a lot of social issues that I didn't enjoy, which led to anxiety, depression, a lot of those types of things in our family. Okay, so I have this is going to go like three different spiral ways, but I'm just just want to have this conversation because I would say for myself, like if I'm looking back at my own natural leadership style, from a very young age, I recognized that probably my leadership was mostly out of fear. Right, I didn't like being in my opinion, abused or spanked or whatever. I think it was just good parenting. Now, as an adult, I think it was great parenting. But there were aspects that were not great as far as like I didn't know why my mom was upset sometimes. I knew she was upset. I knew that we could have done better, but like sometimes she was just upset. So it's like, okay, am I getting spanked because you're upset, or am I getting spanked because and he turned down the radio. The warm air was blowing through the thing, and he put his hand on my knee and said, "Hey, Sam, your voice is pleasant to listen to. One day you could lead people, maybe even be on the radio." Something to that effect, right? And I was like, oh, okay, that's crazy. First time I ever felt recognized, loved, cared about, singled out for a gift that I may have. Um, and so I think there's value in that identity giving. But when it comes down to identifying these children and kind of, for lack of a better word, sorting them like Harry Potter, get the sorting hat. Um, but I know for myself, I grew up not believing that I had any gifts. Like it wasn't probably until I was, well, when I was 12, I got a religious blessing, and like the gift that I have in that is like you work hard. And I'm like, okay, that's a fun gift. Like who wants that gift? You work hard. Wonderful. Okay, and you're and you're friendly. And then and then as I got older, most people who know me would say, okay, Sam gives like the best hugs you're ever going to get is a Sam hug, right? So I have friends who across the country will say, hey, I need a Sam hug right now. Obviously, I can't give them one, but they think of that. And so that's a gift, right? And I recognize that as like, okay, that's a Sam, like that's a unique gift to me. But I grew up because most of my family is extremely talented artistically, singing, dancing, just like every way. And I don't think I ever put a lot of effort into becoming artistic. So I can't say like, well, I'm not. I probably would be okay if I put some effort into it. But for my other siblings, it seems to come very naturally. And so then my wife is like overly concerned about our middle child. I'm like, hey, just like let him be a kid, you know? Like, and I'm defending him, not fully recognizing that I'm really trying to defend my own inner child of like, I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel like me just being me was okay. And so that's where I'm trying to understand like how do we pass down great leadership and teach them, okay, these are your skills, these are the things you're good at, and how do you help them foster an identity of leadership, an identity, maybe not leadership, but at least an identity of self-worth, and that they have the capacity to influence positively.
Uh, as an adult, if I had received encouragement as a kid to be a leader, and certainly I had plenty of independence, but there's difference between self-sufficiency and leadership. Leadership is when you're not only self-sufficient, but where you work with others to achieve things together. So I'll bet out of 11 kids, I'll bet probably two or three of you really had kind of the extra dose of leadership capacity, and they would kind of nurture the others and maybe sometimes boss the others. But that's the way it is in life. Is that you see kids on the playground, You see kids from preschool on up, and there are certain social influencers, and they just have that ability to get others to follow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
all the blessings and love for them. And I didn't like it growing up. And so there's this aspect where a lot of my leadership when I was the ages you mentioned in some of your YouTube videos, like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, when I started to say, look, I don't like getting hit anymore. I don't think my siblings like getting hit anymore. So I'm going to step into this leadership role in my mind and make sure stuff gets done so that everything's taken care of. So there, I've been put into leadership positions. I prefer, though, to be maybe what you would call a quiet leader or a second fiddle to somebody. Like, I love not having all of the responsibility, but I will show up and I will put in more work. I'll work harder. I'll make sure everything's done. Like, I'm great at leading, making sure everything's organized and and inspiring. But when it comes to like being the person who's the decision maker, I don't love that. Um, and so I do kind of avoid that level, like that type of the leadership. Even though, as you mentioned before, like I can do it, I know how to step into it if I need to, and feel that that's necessary.
Spoiling doesn't make people strong people in general. It certainly doesn't make strong leaders. So you don't want to be a helicopter parent, but you also don't want to be abusive parent and be a tyrant. And you're gonna whip all of your kids into being CEOs and generals, and that's not going to happen. So it really comes down to appreciating the gifts of each child, noting them in front of the family. Hey, John is really good at this, and Sarah's really great at this, and acknowledging them because they all have value, but that those values will be in different areas. So like our youngest is really strong kinesthetically, our middle is really strong leadership, our oldest is really strong cognitively, cerebrally. He's uber smartly. I've got three sons. One of them is just a natural leader. One is a medium leader. He's a leader, but he's more of a quiet leader. And our third son, he's really gifted. He's the personal performance coach for Mookie Betts, right? So this guy's got skills of developing others, but he doesn't like to be in charge. So even though we have three sons, we love them the same. They have unique talents, but leadership is different in each one of them. So I think that's what we're trying to say is, someone said a child is not a book to be written, but a book to be read. And we want to read our kids and we want to help them excel in the areas they're most likely to succeed in. And that's kind of the legacy ideas. Everyone should learn about leadership, but those who are sort of gifted at leading, we need to give them an extra.
Some great insight as far as leading. Sometimes I think of so right now, I started working because 11 children. If I wanted to play sports or anything, I had to earn my own income. So I started earning income at a very young age, six years old. By the time I was 11, I was working full time at a honey extracting plant. And so like I grew up with a very strong work ethic and belief that like, hey, if I want something in life, I'm gonna go get it, and I can do that. I have the ability to do that. And so that's a value that I really value and that I want to pass on to my children. And my wife sometimes thinks, oh, you want another one? Paige is
I
making
love
an
it.
appearance.
I love it.
So I want them to also start at a young age believing and knowing that they can add value to the world and like give them a skill that they can feel like if they want something, they don't have to wait for somebody else to give it to them. They have to ask for somebody else's permission for their money or whatever. They can go and provide value and they'll get compensated. And so at a young, like 2 years ago, we sold candy bars door to door. And I just got everything for them, said, okay, go. And then here's the budget. You got to pay me back for investment.
But I believe in all parents ought to train their kids how to be in charge, just like your idea of your little 5-year-old of overseeing the process. That's a brilliant example of everyday leadership training that we can do for our kids. That if we don't do that, if we just have them kneading the bread, then they learn how to bake bread, but they don't learn how to start a bakery.